if you want to add or subtract fractions, what do you have to have? Common denominator. So we will have these on the test. You definitely want to make sure that you know what you're doing here. We don't want to make the problem harder than it has to be, so we start by making sure all of our denominators are completely factored. So if we can make it a little bit easier, we do that. X minus 3, there's nothing we can do with it. But over here, we can do box method. When are you allowed to do the shortcut box method? Right. If it's just a 1x squared, that's when you just get to jump to the straight 2 parentheses. Otherwise, you need to draw out your box. So x squared breaks into x and x. What multiplies to negative 24 and adds to positive 5? All right. Now we have to create our common denominator. So if I'm looking, the first one has x minus 3, but so does the second one, so I don't have to do anything there. The second one has an x plus 8, and the first does not, so I need to give it an x plus 8 so that they match. Whatever you're multiplying by on the bottom, you do on the top as well. Is everybody with me so far? Okay, so now we multiply, distribute your x, so you get x squared plus 8x. The bottom, you can multiply it out if you want, but you don't have to. I'm just going to leave mine factored. Over here, we didn't multiply by anything, so that stays the same. Now the denominators match, so we can put them together into one big fraction. And you're just adding the numerators, adding any like terms. So I have an x squared, 8x plus 1x will give me a 9x. We have a positive 1. And that will be our final answer. And make sure on the test that you show me all of your work. I do partial credit, but if I don't have any work to look at, I can't give you any credit for it. So, a question like this on the test is probably worth 5 or 6 points. So you want to make sure you're showing me some work. What else on the quiz that you want to talk about? Number 11. This one is multiplied, so it's different. Okay, our starting point is the same though. We want to factor. On a multiplication or division problem, you factor everything. So x plus 1 doesn't break down. But x squared minus 4, that's a difference of squares. What does that factor into? Here, it's a 1x squared, so we can do the shortcut. What two numbers multiply to 6 and add to 5? When we're multiplying, if something shows up on the top and bottom, it can cancel out. And it doesn't have to be in the same fraction. It can be in the numerator in one and the denominator in the other. So we can drop out the x plus 1s. We can drop out the x plus 2s. So then all I'm left with is an x plus 3 over an x minus 2. And that is our final answer. So multiplication and division, those are a little bit shorter. The addition and subtraction are your long ones, where you have to make your common denominator. Any other questions on this quiz? Just set that in the corner of your desk. When I come around and pick up your homework, I will take those, and if you've had any questions that you haven't asked me yet, then we can go over them at that time. So the only other thing you guys have for me right now, just a reminder, if you do have any missing work, it has to be turned in before the test to get credit for it, to get late credit for it after the test. It's not worth anything. I think you guys are pretty well caught up in here, but if you are missing anything, I've already touched base with you and told you about that. The study guide I will collect before your test, so bring that with you on Friday. I just do a completion grade on the study guide. I've already posted the answer key, so you guys are supposed to be checking that. And yes, I know you could just copy the answer key down, but that's not going to help you prepare for your test. When I give a test, I am not trying to trick anybody. It's not supposed to be a mystery what kinds of questions I'm putting on the test. So the study guide is like what your test will be like. So today you can have, I want to work problems if we need them. I can work things off the study guide if we need it. I can do extra problems if you say, I just need another addition or subtraction problem. I can put one of those up here and we can work it, or I can give you guys time to work if you need that. So let's start. Are there any questions on the study guide that you have not been able to figure out and you want to talk about together? Yes?
12.
Number 12 on the study guide. Okay, this one is kind of a doozy. I put it on here intentionally to give you an ugly problem. This may be a little bit uglier than what I would put on the test, but if we take the two pieces of this individually, each one of those would make a good test question. So we have two things here. On the top, we have to get a common denominator to put those together. So I might give you a test question with just the numerator and ask you to add those. Then once we do that, we have to divide, which is something I would ask you to do on the test. So this was good practice there. Let's start with the numerator. This is like a 3/1. What will I have to multiply it by so it matches the second fraction? M squared minus 4. So I'm going to take this 3 times m squared minus 4 on top and bottom to create a common denominator. So that gives me 3m squared minus 12 plus 2m. Sorry, hold on. Kind of skipped a step there. I'll back up. So 3m squared minus 12 over m squared minus 4 plus 2m over m squared minus 4. All over the denominator. we have a common denominator on the top, so we can combine those into a single fraction. So we get 3m squared. I'm going to put plus 2m minus 12, but it doesn't really matter what order you write those in. Okay, what we have right now, when you have a big fraction like this, that's a division problem. It's saying you have the numerator divided by that denominator. We need to try multiplication and division problems. We factor everything first. Could I do the shortcut to factor this numerator? No, because it's a 3m squared. So if I did the full box, those multiply to negative 36. Are there any numbers that multiply to equal negative 36 and add to positive 2? Things that multiply to 36. 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9. Is anything going to work? 6 and 6? No, so it doesn't factor. What's the name for something that doesn't factor? Prime. Good. Okay, so that's just going to stay. M squared minus 4, how does that factor? Okay, to divide, we flip and multiply, so I'm going to change this to a times, and then I flip it to m minus 2 over 5. We can cancel anything that shows up on top and bottom, so what would that be? So we have 3m squared plus 2m minus 12 over 5 times m plus 2. You can distribute 5 if you want, but you don't have to. So again, probably a little bit uglier than I would put as a single test question, but I would give you a common denominator test question, and I would give you a division test question. So this has practice for both of those. What else in the study guide do you want to talk about? Let's look at that one. Okay, this one, the answer I have on my answer key, we actually skipped that portion. So that was kind of when we had the week where, you know, our first week of school, we came 3 days and then we switched to completely online for 2 days, and I cut out part of the section just to help alleviate some stress for everybody. So what I skipped was factoring the sum and difference of cubes. You did that in Algebra 2, but you were just given formulas, and that's how I was going to do it in here. I would just give you the formula. I'm not putting any cubes on your test, but we do know at least one thing we could do with this. What's the first step to factoring always? Greatest common factor. So what could you do right here? Take out an 8. Then you have y cubed plus 8. My answer key went further because I used the cube formula to factor that, but from what I taught you this semester, your answer would stop right here. What else? 28. All right. So here we have some options for where to begin. What did you guys do first? What do you want to do first? You flipped. So on the outside, this was a negative. So she's saying the first thing she did was flip the entire inside and make that a positive 3. So, okay. Lots of different places you could begin on this one. You could have also started just distributing that negative 3 through. And I can show you that in a second if we need to. Now if we distribute that exponent, you have to take it to everything, multiply with the exponent there. So that's 6 to the third, y to the negative 6, over 5 to the third, x to the negative 6. We still have some negative exponents. What do negative exponents do? Change floors. So 6 to the third means 6 times 6 times 6, which is 16. That's a y to the negative 6, so it's going to go down to the bottom. On the bottom, 5 to the third, 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. My x would go up to the top. So that's our final answer. Another way you could have done it, if you wanted to start just distributing the negative 3 through, have 5 to the negative 3, x, negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6, over 6 to the negative 3, y, negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. The 5 has a negative exponent, so it drops down to the bottom. The x would stay, 6 would go up to the top, the y would stay, and you get the same answer. So different methods or different starting points, but you get the same answer no matter what. Others on the study guide you'd like to look at? Number 4. Okay, first of all, this is a negative, so what does that do to my fraction? Flips. So that would be a 9 over 8 to the positive 3/2. We have to take that 3/2 to both of them. What a 3/2 means is the square root of that number to the third. Okay, this is another problem that there are different ways you can go about this. If I just start breaking these down, square root of 9 is 3. 3 to the third, 27. Can you do the square root of 8? No. So let's go ahead and cube that first. What's 8 to the third? That's the cube root of 8. 8 to the third means 8 times 8 times 8. You might have to use your calculator on that. 512. Okay, is 512 a perfect square? No, but we can break it into a perfect square. So we have to figure out what it's divisible by. That's a perfect square. I might just start, when I get big numbers, I just kind of pick a starting point, like it's even, so it's divisible by 2. If I do 512 divided by 2, that's 256. Is 256 a perfect square? Yeah. So I'm going to break my 512 into 256 and 2. Square root of 256 is? Use your calculator if you need to. 16. So we have 16 radical 2. Alright, we are one step from the answer. What's wrong with this right now? Okay, get the radical off the denominator. So that's 27 radical 2 over 16 radical 4. Square root of 4 is 2 times 16 is 32. 27 radical 2 over 32. Others on the study guide. Make sure you guys know how to add and subtract, multiply and divide. So like that 9 through 12 section, you know, you've got the addition and subtraction in there, the multiplication. Make sure you know those. Do we need to do a common denominator problem and practice one of those? Okay, I'm just going to make up one because I think that's maybe one of the harder things for us. So let's just say I gave you this problem. So this was not on your study guide, we're just making up something for extra practice. Where do we begin? Factor the denominators here. We have to do both of them. Because it's a 1x squared, we can do the shortcut for both. If it wasn't a 1x squared, what would you have to do? The full box method. Okay. What multiplies to 2 and adds to 3? Okay, over here, multiply to negative 10 and add to negative 3. Okay. So looking at this, the first one has x minus 2, but so does the second one. So do I need to do anything with that? No, they both already have it. First one has x plus 1, the second does not, so it gets it. I'm multiplying by x plus 1. Alright, the first fraction's taken care of. Second fraction still has an x minus 5, the first does not. So I'm going to multiply the first fraction by x minus 5. Okay, when we do that, we distribute. So we get 5x squared minus 25x over, on the bottom now we have an x plus 2, x plus 1, and x minus 5, plus this one we have a 4x plus 4, and then our denominator. These denominators are the same, they're written in different orders, but that doesn't matter. It's the same 3 parentheses, so we can put them together. So we add like terms on the top. We have 5x squared, no other x squared, so that stays. Negative 25 and positive 4 is a negative 21x. And then we just have a plus 4 on the end. So that's our final answer. I want to give you a problem. I'm going to give you a second to start it while I'm coming around collecting the papers you have for me, and then we'll talk about it. What if I just said to factor this? So factor that problem. What do you have to do first? Greatest common factor. What can we take out of these? So if I pull out my 4y, that is generally where people mess up. They forget to pull out their greatest common factors. So make sure you're watching that. I give you a 3y squared minus y minus 4. Now what do we have to do? Box method for the inside. We can't do the shortcut because of that 3, so do the full box. So multiply to a negative 12, add to a negative 1. So what would that be? Negative 4y, positive 3y. So then you factor each column and row. When you write your answer, don't forget the 4y that you already pulled out. So we have 4y times y plus 1 times 3y minus 4. Okay. I'm stopping here. Study guides, make sure it's completed. Bring it on Friday. If you need extra help, come in during advisory or after school. If you have other questions, shoot me an email tomorrow if you're doing some review and you get stuck on anything or you need extra practice, just email me. I'm happy to help you, okay? Any questions about what to expect on your test?